But if I can't get you a video out next week, then I'll absolutely, maybe, get you one the week after next.
You are at the junction of grassland and open rainforest. The air is hot, sticky, and humid, and around you animals that are almost familiar browse on the brush and trees. You see a massive creature that looks a bit like a short-trunked elephant, or maybe a giant fanged tapir. Animals that look like deer but with single-toe hooves like horses. Hornless knot rhinos, oversized armadillos, and strange creatures that look like what you imagine would happen if a panda and a horse had a baby. It's not all serene and placid among these familiar yet strange mammals, as you catch sight of a coyote-sized wolf possum viciously shaking the carcass of one of the strange deer horses. As you survey this strange world of the familiar but different, you catch sight of something hidden amidst the trees. It is only thanks to your superior color vision and pattern recognition, a sense evolved to deal with the threat of snakes to your arboreal ancestors, that you notice the moving bush that is not a bush. The sunlight that passes through the thinned trees at the edge of the tree line illuminates the head of a beast that is like a crocodile, but wrong. Its skull is deeper than any crocodile you've ever seen, more like that of a dinosaur. More than that, as you concentrate your eyes, you can see that the head is attached to the body of an animal nearly as tall at the shoulder as you. And then it leaps. Bounding out of the brush, you see the monster in full as it rushes one of the knot rhinos. The dragon's head must be nearly 3 feet long, and its body and tail another 17 on top of that. You watch in a mix of awe and horror as the titanic predator opens its jaws and delivers a bite to the rear of the knot rhino. You half expect it to grip the frantic mammal and begin to do a titanic death roll, but instead the beast yanks back, ripping flesh with its serrated teeth. A spray of crimson showers the surrounding foliage as the knot rhino gets free and runs with the rest of its herd, though noticeably lagging behind. The great dragon trots behind the fleeing mammal, his long legs, 4-chambered heart, and unidirectional lungs allowing him to leisurely follow his prey as exhaustion and blood loss take their toll. This is not a scene from Spec Evo. None of these strange animals are works of science fiction. This is Miocene South America 12 million years ago. Hey everybody, Finn here. Long time no see. A grad class in Greece over the summer, a forest fire, and a personal family tragedy that I'd rather not get into, as well as a grant being cut at my university, all conspired to make most of the summer a wash when it came to working on the project. And now that the semester has started in earnest, progress is going to stay on the slower side. But this video, episode 3 of the main project, and a short video looking at what might have happened if the KPG asteroid had formed a ring around the Earth instead of crashing into the Yucatan, should all be coming out over the space of the next month and a half. This video isn't episode 3, like I know many of you were hoping for, but because one of the central ideas of Dragons of the Cenozoic is non-avian dinosaurs persisting into the largely mammal-dominated world of the Cenozoic, it does feel relevant. I've seen a bit of a trend in recent months, perhaps motivated in part as a reaction against the antiquated idea that mammals were inherently superior to dinosaurs. It's an overcorrection to right a perceived wrong. In this recent trend, large mammals are generally cast as being inferior to dinosaurs. Mammalian carnivores are relegated to semi-fossorial and semi-arboreal niches by theropods, and large mammalian herbivores are doomed to have their populations either obliterated or slowly withered away by predation from near-peer and peer predators that they can't adapt to deal with. But what does our Earth tell us about mammals and the archosaurian yoke? It is tempting to look at the Mesozoic and write off mammals as having been small things forced into the nocturnal bottleneck by the saurian yoke. After all, non-mammalian cynodonts and our therocephalian cousins duked it out with the archosaurs in the aftermath of the Permian, and it was the archosaurs that ended up winning the day and dominating megafaunal niches for the rest of the Mesozoic. However, when we look at the angiosperm terrestrial revolution and the massive diversification of mammals that went along with it during the late Cretaceous and early Paleogene, we start to see that things were changing. Yes, the 30-pound Patagomya may have been dwarfed by contemporary Argentinian dinosaurs, but animals like Repenomimus and the monotreme Chalicodon and the herbivorous Teniodont Showalteria show that the relationship between mammals and dinosaurs was not as black and white as we once thought. Still, even with these new finds pushing the upper size limits of mammal sizes during the Mesozoic, it's difficult to use anything from this period as a gauge on mammal versus dinosaur discourse, because competitive exclusion kept mammals fairly small for as long as the dinosaurs already dominated the niches of larger animals. It's not until the Cenozoic that we can get better sources to help answer our question. While the bulk of the planet would come under the dominion of mammals during the Cenozoic, the early Paleogene saw the rule of the archosaurs return to South America, Europe, and Australia. And while shifting climate would end the reign of the Sebacids in the European archipelago by the Middle Eocene, South America and Australia would see the rule of Archosauria persist for considerably longer. Unfortunately, the fossil record for Australia is fairly poor for the majority of the Cenozoic. And while South America is substantially better in that regard, it still has large holes that create biases that may skew how we understand the relationship between the archosaurs of South America and their sparassodont and didelphomorphian counterparts. For instance, some of the most basal bore hyenids are known from the very end of their time on Earth about 8 million years ago, creating a significant ghost lineage for these animals. But even still, we can learn a lot from the way these predators lived and died together. On a continent of dromaeosaur-like terror birds and a nearly daspletosaur-sized sebacid, it might be easy to believe that mammalian carnivores would be relegated to smaller-sized mesopredator niches. And the sparassodont body size chart compiled in 2022 by Turchini et al. Does seem to put weight behind this idea at first glance. Of the 59 sparassodonts examined, 47 weighed less than 30 kilos. However, when we look at size in conjunction with speciation rates, it becomes apparent that most of these sparassodonts were small-bodied Eocene groups, rapidly diversifying and then going extinct, skewing the chart in that direction. Once the Oligocene is reached, the story changes. Here we finally start to see large-bodied sparassodonts, and they stick. Though the 2008 Sorkin size estimates for probor hyena gigante vastly overestimated its weight at 600 kilos, which would have made it the single largest carnivorous mammal to have ever lived, the revised, more reasonable estimates still place it at being around the size of a modern male lion. And while it is the largest of the sparassodonts yet known, it was not alone in achieving body sizes on par with many modern big cats. P. gigante was not a small cursorial predator, nor was it an animal readily capable of caching in trees like smaller sparassodonts did. It was in all likelihood a large ambush predator that hunted in the rainforests of Bolivia alongside sebacids, possibly even the enormous Brenosuchus itself, which, while not found in the same formation as the large mammalian carnivore, is found in sites in Peru, Argentina, and Venezuela, both before and after the giant sparassodont went extinct. Ultimately, these large-bodied sparassodonts went into decline not long after they started to emerge on the scene as climate chaos played havoc with South America. While the sparassodonts would outlast the sebacids, the probor hyenids and most of the robust boar hyenids would not, leaving behind only the smaller boar hyenids and the bizarre thylacosmilids, who would convergently evolve big cat sizes with Thylacosmilus long after the sebacids had gone extinct. Perhaps archosaurs played a role in suppressing the sizes and niches that could be filled by mammalian carnivores for longer than occurred in the northern hemisphere, which is why we don't see Ankygelon-sized carnivores during the Paleocene. But one has to wonder what sort of shapes, sizes, and niches might the sparassodonts have taken had they not been the victim of the rising Andes once they had truly come into their own during the Oligocene. Beyond size, another important metric to look at when trying to discuss the impact the giant reptiles like the cebechids, forest rockids, and matsoid snakes had on mammalian predators is speciation and diversity. Ercole 2014's examination of the predator guild in the Santa Cruz Formation can't be used when trying to investigate the cebechids as an analog for mid-sized theropods, but the forest rockids can be used as an approximation for smaller theropods, on account of them being smaller theropods. In the paper, we see similar levels of diversity between similarly sized animals like the terror bird Patagoornis marshii and the sparassodont Acrocyon sectorius, rather than competitive exclusion leading to the demise of the sparassodonts at the hands, or rather beaks, of the forest rockids. It led to niche partitioning in which similar-sized carnivores existed in comparable levels of diversity. The other great non-mammalian carnivores of the continent, the cebechids and the matsoids, despite only a few of them existing on a higher trophic level than the sparassodonts, did so with significantly less diversity. This is to be expected with the giant top-order carnivores like Barynosuchus and Matsoia, but it's less so for the mesopredator genera of these two clades. This is not meant as a way to say, see, mammals are better than archosaurs because they were more diverse in the mesopredator range. Instead, it's a way to look at it not as an argument of mammal versus archosaur, but as saying that these groups can and did live alongside each other in more complex ways than one simply displacing the other from a given environment. Rather than South America affirming the idea of the suppression of mammalian carnivores into smaller semi-arboreal and semi-fossorial roles, it provides a much less cut and dry understanding of the relationship between these large-bodied carnivores. While the previous relationship has mixed results, the relationship between near-peer predators and giant mammalian herbivores in South America not only does not support the idea that large mammals could not survive in a world with near-peer predators their own size, it directly contradicts it. While the nearly 2-ton Barynosuchus is an order of magnitude smaller than the largest theropods and was itself dwarfed by the 6-ton Hylarcotherium, it still represents a massive archosaurian near-peer predator that would have hunted multi-ton toxodontids and astrapotheres. Animals like the large toxodontids would have almost certainly had gestation periods on par with modern rhinos, and animals like Hylarcotherium would have likely matched the even longer pregnancies of elephants. They would have lost children, the elderly, the sick, and probably on occasion perfectly healthy individuals to predation from the giant crocs. These giant mammals evolved gigantism alongside the cebechids, after the previous large-bodied mammals, the pyrotheres, had gone extinct, who had also evolved gigantism along the cebechids. Despite these larger body sizes driving their rates of replacement down and making them slower prey items, whose only significant defense would have been their bulk and herding behavior. In the seemingly never-ending barrage of videos asking, could insert X Cenozoic mammals survive in the Mesozoic, there has been a fairly consistent line that large-bodied herbivorous mammals would slowly be picked away at by large-bodied theropods because of their slow reproductive rates and their inability to defend themselves from predation. This would be news to the massive mammals of the Cenozoic, which lived in ecosystems where terrestrial reptiles represented a 6th trophic level. A potential counter to this argument against the decimation of mammalian megafauna by dinosaurs is that theropods would have had higher caloric needs than Barynosuchus or Megalania, and would have applied greater pressure on mammals. And while this is likely true, those demands would not have been nearly as much as one might think. Barrick and Shower's 1999 suggests that large theropods like Tyrannosaurus would have only required about 20 kilos of food a day, meaning that any large kill would have satiated these animals for some time. Along with these lower food requirements, it's also important to remember that many of these giant theropods would have existed in very low population densities as adults, with there likely only being about 20,000 adult tyrannosaurs at any given time. With the size of a medium theropod and the unidirectional lungs of archosaurs and varanids, Barynosuchus and Megalania should have been the end of rhino-sized mammals like the pyrotheres, toxodontids, astrapotheres, or diprotodontids in their areas. But they weren't. Instead, these animals lived side by side until climate change destroyed their ecosystems and drove predator and prey extinct. This is not an I hate fun manifesto where I tell you, stop asking, would tarbosaurs cause the extinction of Paraceratherium if they were dropped into Oligocene Asia? Instead, it's meant to show that there aren't simple rock, paper, scissors answers to complex ecological questions. Dinosaurs are not inherently better than mammals, and neither are mammals inherently better than dinosaurs. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully my life will not explode in a series of comedic and tragic events, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Oh, and in case you were wondering, Paraceratherium was about 3.5 times the mass of Tarbosaurus, about the same relative size difference between Hylarcotherium and Barynosuchus.